Go and look deep. Don't stop until you actually sit and get tears in your eyes about the impact of your very presence. You may have been minimizing yourself. You know, when you value yourself, so does the world. So I had this opportunity once, many years ago, when I was in South Africa, to do a presentation to a group of young people who were in, I guess you could say, primary to secondary school. And they bussed some of these children in to come and spend the day with me. And it was a young adults inspired destiny program that we were doing, where I was presenting. It's a full day to inspire young people to go out and do some extraordinary things in their life. And there was a young boy there that had been bussed in from a very rural area and looked a bit like he'd come from an impoverished environment. His appearance and dress was definitely not something you see in a normal Western world mall. And he was definitely subdued, quiet, and I think representing in some degree of self-minimization, comparing himself to the people in the room. Now, there were people of all different spectrums of socioeconomic position, and they come from distances, various distances. But he was quiet and subdued, but he had apparently won the opportunity to come from where he was. And there was a number of miles he had to drive for hours to be there. And I saw him there, and I saw him subdued. I saw him withdrawn. I saw him quiet. I could see him comparing himself. It wasn't hard to see. See, anytime you put someone in a pedestal and you think they're smarter than you, or you think that they're more successful than you, or more wealthy than you, or more stable in relationships, or more socially connected, or more physically fit and attractive, or more spiritually aware, whatever, it's very easy to minimize yourself to them and kind of compare yourself to them and self-depreciate. So he seemed to be probably more self-depreciative than probably his normal day, being in that environment. And I think I was intimidating to him, not intentionally, but I think just being there with a vivacious kind of guy speaking was a bit of a jolt to him too. I don't know if you've really realized that you cannot do any part of your daily activity without impacting the world. You're a very important individual in the world. And did whatever I could to show that his small, insignificant thing that he started with, buying a bar of soap, was massive as far as economic input, output, and the effects, and the social effects, and educational effects, and tax effects, and building effects, and engineering effects. And I just went on and on and on and went every direction I could go. And when I got through, this young boy could see that he was more significant than he ever realized just by asking that question. And I don't think that we really stop and reflect on sometimes our daily actions, because that's just buying a bar of soap. But if you go through what you do in a day, when you're going online on the internet, you're investing in actually all the networks that are out there. You're participating, you're paying for something, you're helping communication, you're helping give job opportunities, you're helping creativity. I mean, there is an innumerable billions of people that are impacted automatically when you're sitting there in your internet and just doing an internet response. So when you may be going online and go, well, let's look at the soap is and what the cost is, you may be actually impacting people by the millions. So the reason I'm starting off with this story is because sometimes we don't pay close attention to the impact we have with our daily routine. We may have this idea, well, I have to go out and make a difference socially. And that's maybe something that's meaningful and inspiring and you deserve to do. But I don't want you to think that you're not making a difference if you don't do it that way. You could be making a difference just by raising a beautiful child. You could be making a difference by going out and starting a company. You could be making a difference by going into the grocery store. You could make a difference by feeding somebody. I don't know what it is. I've seen people do all kinds of things. I saw people sorting in Houston, Texas. I watched a man who was partly blind, and partly without. His arms, upper extremities were non-functional, and he had a mouthpiece in his mouth, and he was sorting buttons and dividing different sizes of buttons and colored buttons into different categories to be reused. And he was actually involved in, with his mouth, actually isolating the buttons with this little, you could say this, a knife looking switch thing, and cutting buttons and sorting buttons and coloring buttons and everything else. And even though he was doing something that was seemingly menial, he had an impact, because thousands of people are going to wear those clothes. And they're going to come and shop someday using those clothes. They're going to make quilts out of the materials he's taking. So I just want you to stop and reflect for a moment, in case you've never done it in your life, on what little things you might be doing that might have a massive impact. And go and play with the ripple effect. You might surprise yourself. One thing you say might change the course of somebody's life. I've been blessed to speak a lot, as you probably can guess. And I've gotten people sending in emails from around the world. And I know I'm reaching millions of people. But sometimes I'll reach one individual, and they will reach millions of people with a message. You might be reaching millions of people without even knowing it. You might be changing the decisions about what people decide to do in their life. You may actually stimulate somebody's career, or who they end up marrying, or how many children they have, just by your very presence. So your exercise that I'm going to ask you to consider is to write down all the ripple effects that you have in your life, and take it and divide it up into the 7 areas of life. Your spiritual quest, the mind development quest, your career quest, your financial quest, your family quest, your social quest, your health quest. All areas of your life, take a look at what impact what you do. Make a list of everything you might do in a day. Make a list of what you might be doing in a week or a month, and go through and itemize everything that you're doing, and take a look at impacts it has around the world. Because you just might blow your mind and find out that what you're doing is way more significant than first meets the eye. You know, when I was 18 years old, and I started back to school after having learning challenges and not knowing how to read. I didn't read till I was 18. I was sitting out at Wharton Junior College, meditating in the sun, trying to be able to overrule the heat of the sun by meditation and remain cool and not sweat, just as an exercise. And there's a guy that was watching it. And finally, after I came out of the meditation, he came up to me and he says, excuse me, but can you teach me what you're doing? So he became a student of mine, my second student in my entire life. He ended up, as a result of that, being inspired by what I was doing. And I told him my path I was taking. He ended up following a similar path. He ended up going on to professional school, going on to a similar college, ended up doing it in the same town. He was the one that inspired me to someday want to go to Tehran and go speak to his heritage, the Persians in Iran, which I eventually did. And I told the people in Iran about this man. So this man impacted my life 40 years later, well, 35 years later. And I impacted his life for 50 years now, just from one interaction. Happened to be meditating. So I want you to go through and make a list. Take the 7 areas of your life and make a list, and just creatively brainstorm on the impact that you've had by your very presence. The people you've touched, the things you've learned, the places you've gone, the things you've said, the things you've done, like buying a bar of soap, and just meditate on the impact that each of those things may have in your life and on the people's lives around you. And see if you aren't just like Arthur Eddington said, when the electron vibrates, the universe shakes. See if you're not actually impacting the universe. See if you're not impacting decisions more than you realize, and families, and job opportunities, and economic transactions. Go and look deep. Don't stop until you actually sit and get tears in your eyes about the impact of your very presence. You may have been minimizing yourself. You know, when you value yourself, so does the world. When you minimize yourself, so does the world. By doing this exercise and not make anything up, don't exaggerate it, don't lie about it, just go and look. When this boy was through, he did something pretty cool. The end of the little presentation, at the end of the day, he handed me a piece of paper. And it was folded. And he says, Dr. Demartini, I want to give you something. You're going to want this. I said, what's this? He said, it's my autograph. It's going to mean something. I intend to make a difference, a bigger difference in the world. So I want you to have my autograph. Now, from a boy who was meek, comparing himself to other people, playing smaller, thinking more of an outcast, his presence was changed by that question. His very presence was changed by simply the ripple effect. And as I said, the ripple effect of your life may be greater than you imagine. Might just have impacted you and other people in ways you didn't know. I mean, I had a friend of mine in Las Vegas. I was speaking there, and I happened to be at that time married, and my wife's name was Athena at the time. And I told a story about my wife up on stage. And the gentleman just was about to adopt a young girl and decided to call her Athena. So she grew up, and I didn't know that the family talked about my wife in front of the girl, and the girl studied my wife's life, which is interesting. So just a story at a seminar made a difference in a child's life that was adopted. So go into your life and go take a deep look. And don't stop till your mind is open-hearted and blind, but blown away by the blindness you've had. Because you've probably been unaware of the impact you're making. The moment you value yourself and realize you're making a bigger difference than you do, the way you perceive yourself relative to the world changes. It doesn't get arrogant. It just gets more confident. It doesn't exaggerate itself. It's just looking at the facts. I don't want you to imagine delusions. I want you to just open your heart and look at what's really happened. Look at the impact you're having. I was hitchhiking from Houston, Texas to Los Angeles when I was 14. I got various rides, and I finally made my way to El Paso, Texas. In those days, the Interstate 10 wasn't complete, so I had to walk through this old downtown El Paso. And El Paso was not the surfer capital of the world. There's a bunch of cowboys. And I was a long-haired hippie surfer, and cowboys didn't like surfers. And I walked through the downtown area with my surfboard and had to go through the town and walk out on the other side to get back on the highway to get off to California. Well, when I was going through town, I got confronted by 3 cowboys who looked like they wanted to beat me up. They were older than I was, probably 19, 20, 21. I was 14 at the time. I didn't know what else to do but to growl and bark and act like an animal, which worked. It made them back off. When I did that, there was a guy leaning on a lamppost who was laughing his butt off. And as I came walking through those 3 cowboys and came out on the other side, he came up to me and put his arm on my shoulder and he said, "Sonny, that's the funniest dang thing I've ever seen somebody do. You took care of them cowpokes like a pro. Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" I said, "I don't drink coffee, sir. Can I buy you a Coca-Cola?" And so he took me to a malt shop a couple streets down. We sat in these swivel stools. And he asked me about my life, asked if I was a runaway. And I said, "Well, not exactly. My parents gave me a ride to the freeway so I could hitchhike to California to go surfing." And what's interesting is, after I had that little Coke with that gentleman, he asked me He says, have you finished your Coke? I said, yes, sir. He said, then I have something I want to teach you, young man. I'd like you to follow me. Now I was a little hesitant, even though he seemed like a pretty open, cool guy. I was a little hesitant. The guy was probably in his early 60s or something. That seemed old at that time, even though I'm now older than that. So I followed this guy a couple blocks, another couple blocks. And he takes me to the downtown El Paso library. We go up some steps, and there's a little information booth with a white-haired lady there, and he told her to keep an eye on my stuff when we went inside. That's everything I owned, so I had the board and my little duffel bag, but I felt it was okay there. We walked down some steps and up some other steps and over into this little area where there's some desks. And he said, Sonny, sit here. I went off into the bookshelves, came back with a couple books, and he put them on the table in front of me. And he looked at me and he said, now, Sonny, there's two things I want to teach you, young man. Number one is never judge a book by its cover. He said, because the cover can fool you. He says, look at me. You probably think I'm some old guy, I'm bum on the street. But young man, I'm one of the wealthiest men in the world. I have everything that money can buy. Planes and businesses and homes and companies. So young man, don't let a cover fool you. And then he said, he put my hands on, took my hand and he put it on top of the two books. The two books were Plato and Aristotle, the two Greek philosophers. He said, young man, there's only two things that people can never take away from you in your life. They can never take away your love and your wisdom. So you gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom, you learn how to read, boy. They can take away your possessions, they can take away this, they can take away your loved one, but they can never take away your love and wisdom. So you gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom, you learn how to read. Now, he made me promise to never forget that. Then he put the books back on the shelf and led me out and showed me where to go to hitchhike on to California. Today I have cufflinks that say love and wisdom because of that man's action. That gentleman happened to be Howard Hughes, who happened to be doing an El Paso natural gas deal in El Paso, Texas for a brewery he was building in Austin. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time to meet the right individual to say the right thing. My life changed that day without realizing it immediately. Later on, when I was 17, 3 years later, almost 18, almost 4 years later, when I nearly died and I met Paul Bragg, that story continued. And I finally decided I'm now going to gain the wisdom of love and the love of wisdom, and I'm going to learn how to read. So sometimes we don't realize that chance little experiences have a massive impact. I doubt if that man ever knew what happened to me. He never knew that little message he gave me changed my life. My dream was to do the same, to make a difference. I had a dream to be able to, do the same thing that man did for me and the same thing Paul Bragg did for me, because one little statement just shifted the trajectory of my life. So I don't want you to ever question the power of the ripple effect. My life today is because of meeting that man on the street at 14 and another one at 17, 18. And I've met millions of people over the years. I have no idea what all the ripple effect is, but I know that it's more than I first stop and reflect on when I look at it. I've been teaching a program called the Breakthrough Experience. I've been doing it for 34 years almost. I've done it 1,164 times. I've had thousands, and I mean thousands of letters come in from that program and the impact it's had on them, their family, and their loved ones, and sometimes the next generation. I've seen even up to 4 generations. You never underestimate the significance of a small group of individuals with an idea that changed the course of history, as Margaret Mead said. You're an individual with a message, a mission. You have a higher value The highest value is where you're going to excel. Every time you live according to that highest value, you're going to leave a mark in this world. Because every human being wants to be able to be authentic. And anytime you live by your highest values, you live an authentic life. And anytime you do, you give permission for other people to do. And that impact is not stoppable. The ripple effect is the incremental momentum building ripple effect. When I've taught the breakthrough experience and I've watched the impact of people around the world, countries around the world, I realize that you can make a difference. You just got to give yourself permission to do it. Not play small. That's why I teach the breakthrough experience. To catalyze people to open the doorway to a possibility in their life they may never have given themselves permission to do. I want them to know that if they live congruently according to their highest value, their space and time horizons are going to grow. The permission they give themselves to do something extraordinary is going to expand. The clarity and the executive function of their brain is going to come online. Their leadership is going to come online. Their resilience and adaptability is going to come online. Their authenticity is going to come online. Their strategic planning, their foresight, all going to come online. It's going to give them a competitive advantage and a competitive edge over people that don't know the ripple effect and are not learning how important it is to be authentic. The most authentic you is the most impacting and most rippling affected individual. People want authentic people. They want to do business with authentic. They want to be married to authentic people. They want to be loved for who they are. That's why I teach the breakthrough experience. That's why I've developed the Demartini method. To dissolve all the judgment. See, if we put somebody on a pedestal like that boy did when he walked in the room, and play small because we put somebody on a pedestal, we're going to minimize ourselves. And if we also talk down and look down on people and judge somebody and get arrogant, we're not going to relate to people. Our ripple effect is lessened. But the moment we get authentic, our ripple effect maximizes. That's why I teach the breakthrough experience. To help people become authentic, to help them dissolve the distractions and self-minimizations and exaggerations and putting people on pedestals and pits, where they can put people in their heart and live in their heart and go do something magnificent. The magnificence of who you are is far greater than any fantasies you'll impose on yourself. And you maximize the ripple effect. You maximize the impact you have. I remember it was Abraham Maslow. I was reading an article, or actually a section of a book about Abraham, and he walked in a room. There's just a small group of about 20 people in the room, and he said, who's going to be the next president? Who's going to be the next business leader? Who's going to be the next Olympic medalist? Who's going to be the next Nobel Prize winner? If not you, who? And he was making sure that they stopped and reflected and realized that they have the capacity to do something extraordinary. And that little ripple effect can start the ball in motion. And the breakthrough experience can get that thing moving and help you build momentum that's unstoppable. That's why I do these little programs, these little messages, to try to whet the appetite on what's possible in your life. Somebody did that for me when I was young. And it did impact my life. And I'm absolutely certain it can impact yours. And I love doing that. I love taking a moment just to share this little message and definitely teach the breakthrough experience over 1,164 times. And because I know that that's my way of doing what Paul Bragg, that gentleman, did with me at 17, and Howard Hughes did when I was 14, and many others along the way that have all had the ripple effect on me. So go home tonight and take a look at the ripple effect. Go home and prioritize your life. Go on my website and do the value determination and get clear about it. And find a way to come to the breakthrough experience so I can help you do something extraordinary with your life and give yourself permission to have the ripple effect. When I've asked people in every possible walk of life, from prisons to government heads, how many of you want to make a difference? Every hand goes up. You're not going to make a difference playing small. You're going to make a difference by standing in the authenticity of who you are and realizing that nothing's missing in you. The only thing you thought was missing in you is all the things you're too proud or too humble to admit that you see in others inside you because you're comparing yourself to them. Don't compare yourself to other people. Compare your daily actions to what you value most and get on with what's priority. And let's maximize the ripple effect. Come to the breakthrough experience. So let me help you with 24 hours. I've spent 25 minutes with you here. 24 hours, I'm certain I can make a difference. I can get the ball rolling. I know I can help you see the ripple effect and get it in motion. So let me help you. Come to the breakthrough experience and do the value determination process. And maybe watch this little class here again. And tonight, contemplate the ripple effect before you go to bed and start writing it down and documenting it. So I look forward to seeing you at the breakthrough experience. Thank you for joining me for today. All you have to do is go down right beneath. There's a little click link. You just click that link and it'll give you all the pathways on how to get to the program so we can spend 24 hours together so I can help you do something even more extraordinary with your life, just like those two men did with my life. So when the electron vibrates, the universe shakes. You're more than an electron. You can make a difference in the world. Let me help you do that. I look forward to seeing you at the breakthrough experience, and thank you for joining me today. And just contemplate the ripple effect. And look forward to seeing you next week.